pull the right file at the right time. This is Newsroom. Hello and welcome. As always, from Johannesburg here in South Africa, my name is Eben Jansen. The show is very much live. It's broadcast from our studio in Auckland Park. We're also streaming live on YouTube right now with our entire show available on demand on our YouTube channel. Now, on the show today, we look at the rise of charismatic churches here in South Africa. And then after that, we talk about the legal recourse that families of victims have after that tragic building collapse in Nigeria. We also speak to the Tshwane University of Technology about the continued unrest on their Pretoria campus. And we conclude today's show with a young R&B artist who will be in studio with Katrina a little bit later. But first, let's get a news update from Katrina Miller.
Well, hello and welcome to Newsroom. I'm Katrina Milan, and let's take a look at the top stories this morning. Fingerprints and DNA samples are expected to be sent to Pretoria later this week as the process gets underway to confirm the identity of the South Africans who died in the Nigerian church disaster. A forensic team from South Africa is in Lagos to start collecting the fingerprints and DNA samples today. 84 South Africans died when the guest house at the Synagogue Church of All Nations collapsed more than a week ago. All 25 South African patients who returned from Nigeria yesterday are on a 48-hour lockdown due to the Ebola outbreak in West Africa. On that Ebola topic, new estimates from the World Health Organization warn that the number of Ebola cases could hit 21,000 in 6 weeks unless efforts to curb the outbreak are ramped up. Since the first cases were reported 6 months ago, the tally of cases in West Africa has reached an estimated 5,800 illnesses. WHO officials say cases are continuing to increase and Ebola could sicken people for years to come without better control measures. Today, climate change takes center stage at the United Nations Summit in New York City. President Jacob Zuma has stressed the importance of today's UN Climate Change Summit in New York, saying climate change threatens development gains. He said intergovernmental talks were the only legitimate vehicle to achieve an agreement by next year's UN Climate Change Conference in Paris.
The UN Secretary General's Climate Summit needs to send a clear signal that adaptation will be accorded the same priority as mitigation in the new agreement. And as such, we must continue our call that a global goal for adaptation be part of the new agreement.
Then back home, and Deputy President Cyril Ramaphosa will spend a second day locked in meetings with various groups in Maseru, Lesotho in an effort to break the political stalemate in the country.
We are in cooperative mode with all the parties, and I think we should be able to find answers one way or another soon.
And Energy Minister Tina Johannesburg says the nuclear power cooperation deal with Russia opens up the door for South Africa to access Russian technologies, funding and infrastructure. The minister was reacting to an announcement by Russia's Atomic Energy Agency that it will supply 8 nuclear reactors to South Africa by 2023. The announcement was made at an International Atomic Energy Conference in Vienna, Austria yesterday. Remember, all those top stories and more are available on our Newsroom Facebook page. You can also follow us on Twitter at SABC Newsroom. Eben, over to you.
Yeah, Katrina will be back a little bit later with another update shortly after the half hour. Now, the deaths of 84 South Africans in a building collapse in Lagos, Nigeria, recently has put the spotlight firmly on the rise of these charismatic churches here in South Africa. It is said that every month, hundreds of people from all parts of South Africa flock to TB Joshua's Synagogue Church of All Nations in the hope of receiving healing treatment. Now, today we are once again joined by Dr. Maria van Aap from the University of Johannesburg's Department of Religious Studies. Very good morning to you. Thank you for joining us again today.
Thank you so much for having me.
I want to start at the beginning because there's such a lot of stuff to detangle. What exactly is a charismatic church in this South African context, and what do they offer?
So the charismatic movement in South Africa really started to gain popularity in the 1980s. They're very informed by the kind of Pentecostal, charismatic, and evangelical movements of the United States. And in these churches, healing is seen as a way in which God demonstrates his power and is active in people's lives. And people are filled with the Holy Spirit, and this Spirit enables you to perform healings, to predict the future, to drive out demons, to find success in your life. And these churches have been rising ever since the 1980s. One of the key things about the South African churches is that they also offer a whole lot of skills training. And it's not just skills training at a low level like learning how to sew, but skills training about how to perform in the business world, how to carry yourself in a meeting, how to negotiate for a salary increase. And so a lot of these churches are very attractive to people because they offer a whole lifestyle and way to live and be successful in the world.
It seems as if these churches are very much on the rise here in South Africa. If you look around the cities all around the country, it's as if there's a church popping up on every corner almost. Why in South Africa do they have such support and are they gaining such momentum, do you think?
I think it's for two reasons. I think the one reason definitely has to do with what they offer. And they offer help to get a job and help to succeed in your job. But on another level, they offer you the promise that with faith and prayer, God is going to miraculously do good things for you. And for people whose world is unstable, who are struggling to find work, with South Africa's high unemployment rates, people coming from other parts of Africa, migrants, insecure, unsure of a future, these kind of churches offer a place that talks about security and offers you a way to gain a good life.
What's the difference then between this kind of church and a cult?
The cults, by definition, are generally quite closed, so they tend not to tell you what they're about. You tend to have to go through some kind of ritual to join them. And these churches don't have that. You can join at any time. You can go to any of these big churches on any given Sunday, and there is nothing secretive and hidden about these churches.
Are South Africans generally more naive, and some even called it gullible, than elsewhere on the continent?
Definitely not. These churches are growing at a rapid rate in places like Ghana and Nigeria, actually much faster than South Africa. And I don't know that these people are gullible. I think that might be judging them a bit harshly. They are people who are desperate for hope. And sometimes when you go away for a week and you let go of the stresses of the world, you are able to experience healing.
I want to show you a clip. I did an interview with, one of South Africa's very famous charismatic preachers, Dr. H.Q. Nala, who made headlines last year when he was selling holy water that could supposedly heal HIV/AIDS, and this even led to people stopping their ARV medication. Now, we had him on the show. Let's just take a look at what he had to say. Please explain to us how the faith water that you sell, how this medication works, and how does that water cure HIV and other illnesses?
It is through faith of people who believe, like God spoke to me, he will use anything branded my name. It is according to the person's faith, and the person gets healed.
It really is as simple as that. It doesn't work if you don't believe. Isn't that the ultimate get-out clause for any conman, as it were?
And it's the ultimate get-out clause for any religion. If you don't believe, it's not going to work. So why do people believe? Because for some people it does work, and for other people the idea that there is a greater power is really soothing and healing for them. And then I think there are a third group of people who, as you say, are just desperate for something. And holy water is maybe something that's going to help them.
He now sells holy honey. Apparently the holy honey, you eat it, you put it in your drinks, and it sorts out all your problems. I don't know. I know the faith water was there. There we have. It's 50 Rand for a tube of holy honey. Surely there must come a point. This is, of course, Dr. H.Q. Nala's webpage.
Yeah.
Surely there must come a point where the authorities have to intervene and look at this. You can't be selling faith honey for 50 Rand and telling people if you have faith, anything can happen in your world. How do you, for lack of a better word, police this kind of thing?
Well, is it really up to the government to police this? And then what other things should we be policing? I think what is more frightening here is how people give themselves over to something like this, become disillusioned, and what we don't talk about is how many people leave these churches and actually live lives where they are very depressed because they've spent all this money, they've gone to all these places, they've taken the holy honey, and ultimately what is wrong with them? Because that's how these churches work. The problem is with you and your lack of faith. The problem is not with the leaders and not with God. And is that really what the Christian message is about? Or is it about us working together to support each other in truth and honesty?
Is this the reason why we saw straight after the collapse some of the survivors, they've gone straight back into TB Joshua's church and blame Satan for what happened? Yes,
because Satan is the great get out of free jail card. You don't have enough faith and Satan is all powerful. And if you don't pray hard enough, Satan's going to come in and destroy things. So, of course, Satan is the one who destroyed the church, and people have to go back. I mean, if they don't, then everything they've done before is meaningless because it is at that church that they will find the healing. Their broken arm will get healed.
Finally, these men of God, is there a fear factor that they hold over their followers?
Yes, and the Bible tells you to fear God and to fear the people that lead you, and this is fear in a good sense, but I'm not convinced that the fear these people hold over people is a good kind of fear. I think it's a fear that becomes quite manipulative.
Well, it seems to be the case. There's lots of talk of bribery, corruption, and all other things, people being paid for their silence and the like. But thank you for shedding light into this very difficult subject. Dr. Maria Framap from the University of Johannesburg's Department of Religious Studies. Thank you for joining us today.
Thank you so much for having me.
Now, the number of people who've died following the collapse of that Nigerian church building has risen to 115 now. The number of South African victims remains at 84. 25 survivors arrived back in the country yesterday.
Finally back on home soil after a harrowing ordeal. Scores of journalists, emergency services and medical staff awaited the plane's arrival, delayed for several hours. The biggest post-94 evacuation operation. Among the survivors, orphans. 18-month and 4-year-old siblings lost both their parents when the guest house at the Synagogue Church of All Nations collapsed on September 12th. They were placed in the care of social workers. The focus now shifts to the repatriation of the 84 deceased, and again, warnings that it could be a long wait.
That process will be dependent on the pace in which the assessment team is proceeding in Lagos, in particular the DNA that is being conducted as we speak, so that we are sure that all those that will be repatriating are South African citizens.
We are actually conducting forensics on all the people. There are about 115 bodies. Out of them, then we have our 84. And then, but now from there now confirm our people, because we have taken the DNA samples from the family members who are here, and we'll take the DNA samples from the other family members in South Africa.
Calling it a national disaster, Pretoria says it's keenly awaiting the outcome of the Nigerian government's investigation. Offences Timo, SABC News, Pretoria.
Now, children have been left orphan, people have been maimed and will never be able to work again. Others have suffered the loss of family breadwinners. What happens now? While TB Joshua's church continues blaming the building collapse on sabotage, the victims now have to move on with their lives. Do they have any legal rights, any steps they can take against the church following this tragic accident? Well, this morning we're joined by legal expert and Director of Litigation at Worksman's Attorneys, Bernard Hotz. Good morning, Bernard. Thank you for joining us again.
Morning, Eben. Thanks for inviting me.
If one of your family members died or were maimed in this tragedy, what kind of recourse or what kind of route would you take?
Eben, the first thing that we've got to look at is, unfortunately, in Nigeria, over the last couple of years, we've seen a number of building collapses. I think the stats said there were over 30 building collapses in the last 10 years. And the Nigerian building authorities in Lagos have actually come up with ordinances, statutes, that they are applying to try and curb the defective building, the structural integrity issues that are plaguing the building industry there. The first thing that has to happen, as we've seen, is that the authorities have gone in and they've marked this building with an X. What is that X? That X is to determine whether or not there were structural defects. Yeah. So now you look at what the situation is. You've got a building and they were constructing 2 floors above it. You have to have a permit to do that. So there has to be all types of investigations to see were there the appropriate permits in place? Was the construction handled appropriately? The answer to that is going to determine what happens from a legal context. Because now we're dealing with people who attended a church and were injured, killed. You've got dependents who now want to seek legal redress. We talk about in delict, taught in Nigeria, the duty of care. Who owed them a duty of care? Yeah. Who can they sue? And now there's another complexity. Complexity is that the victims, the South Africans, are based in South Africa. Where do they litigate? They have to litigate in Nigeria. So they're a foreigner in the jurisdiction in Nigeria. That has its own complexities. Do they have to provide security for costs because they're now litigating in a foreign court? Do we have the option of class actions? Nigeria does recognize class actions. The last class action that I read about took 10 years to finalize. So unfortunately, we're looking at a situation where to say at this moment, who can you sue? I think it's a little bit premature.
How do you see a process like this proceed then, when we talk liability, when we talk jurisdiction?
Well, assuming that the investigation determines that the church management may have been at fault because they didn't secure the appropriate approvals. The other complexity that one has to look at is the failure to secure the appropriate approvals. Was that the cause of the actual collapse? So that's another complexity. You may have failed to obtain an approval from a government organization, but that may not have been the cause. But let's assume for a moment that that does stack up, that was the cause, and that in law they had a duty of care towards the victims, and now you want to seek legal redress. You have to seek legal redress in the Nigerian court. You have to be the plaintiff, and you have to sue them in what we call delict or tort in Nigeria to say that they breached their duty of care.
What kind of landmark cases are you aware of, if any, that litigators in this case would be able to draw from?
Even it's one's looking at a situation where you are claiming loss, damages. What is that loss? You've got different categories. You've got people who may have been injured. They're therefore claiming medical damage, medical expenses. They're claiming pain and suffering. Yeah. You may be looking at dependents, children who, as you said, have been orphaned, and they're claiming loss of support. So I think one's going to see a wide range of cases. The thing that troubles me is that litigation is, at the best of times, expensive. It's a long process, and you're looking at individual litigants having to litigate in a foreign country, which is not an easy thing to do.
Now there are a lot of families today that are in turmoil and in crisis because of this tragedy. What would your advice be to those family members who have suffered loss going forward? What would be the best course of action that you could advise them to take?
I think it would be appropriate to group. I call it a group. Some people may call it a class. We're talking about class action. Yeah. And I think it's important for people to group together and obtain the right advice to try and see how they best can assert their legal remedies. There are legal remedies to assert, and I think it would be easier, not necessarily legally easier, but easier practically to assert your rights as a class.
Would we have attorneys or lawyers in South Africa that would take a case like this on, and why?
Even one mustn't forget that we're litigating on foreign soil. So the law is different. For instance, the Nigeria is based mainly on English law. So it would be appropriate to utilize the services of lawyers in Nigeria, and I've little doubt that there would be lawyers in Nigeria who would be sympathetic to this type of cause.
Well, Bernard, thank you very much for joining us and giving us a little bit of an inside view as to what recourse the victims and the families in this tragedy have. Thank you for joining us today.
My pleasure.
That's Bernard Hotz, who is the legal expert and head of business crimes unit at Worksman's Attorneys here in Johannesburg. Time for us now to take a look at what you're talking about on social media this morning. Of course, at SABC Newsroom is where you can send it. Mozzie says, at TB Joshua, have they found the plane black box through that rubble yet? That's a little bit of humour, of course. They maintain it was sabotage and mysterious spray was sprayed by a plane over the building that made it collapse. Now, Tebe Ikalafeng says, satisfied with how the South African government finally handled the return of TB Joshua victims. The less said about that church, the better. A crime, says Tebe Ikalafeng. Nchema says, instead of coming to South Africa monthly in memory of the dead martyrs, TB Joshua must give their families monthly grants. Most were breadwinners. That is a very firm view there. Masebe Mahafola says, there was Ebola lockdown in Sierra Leone. Can we have TB Joshua lockdown in South Africa? That is, well, sounds like TB Joshua will not be very welcome in South Africa when he comes to visit, or on the promised visit that he's told the world in the last couple of days. Let's now take a look at the world's front pages this morning. We start with the South China Morning Post. Thousands of students are taking their fight for democracy to the next level there. Gathering in numbers and marching to government headquarters today. Thousands formed a sea of white in the streets yesterday, launching a week-long class boycott. Moving to France, and La Croix shifting focus to climate change on its front page this morning as the UN Climate Change Summit is set to take place in New York today. Then, the Daily Telegraph. You have a beautiful picture of British actress Harry Potter star Emma Watson, who's being celebrated for a moving speech she delivered over the weekend about gender inequality and the launch of the He for She campaign at the United Nations headquarters in New York. Now, on that note, the British actress Emma Watson's moving speech on gender equality at the UN has been making waves on social media as well. The full speech is available on our Newsroom Facebook page, but let's take a sneak peek.
I am reaching out to you because we need your help. We want to end gender inequality. And to do this, we need everyone involved. This is the first campaign of its kind at the UN. We want to try and galvanize as many men and boys as possible to be advocates for change. And we don't just want to talk about it. We want to try and make sure that it's tangible. I was appointed as Goodwill Ambassador for UN Women 6 months ago. And the more I've spoken about feminism, the more I have realized that fighting for women's rights has too often become synonymous with man-hating. If there is one thing I know for certain, it is that this has to stop. For the record, feminism, by definition, is the belief that men and women should have equal rights and opportunities. It is the theory of the political, economic, and social equality.
Now, in New York today, it is still all about the United Nations Climate Summit that's set to take place a little bit later, and we'll keep you updated. Now, our newsroom producer, Anine Dormel, is in New York at the moment and joined the people on Sunday for a march there on the subject of climate change. Thousands gathered for the biggest ever march on the subject. These pictures from Anine Dormel, they're all ahead of today's talks, of course. Major companies are expected to make pledges on how to help fight global warming by cutting their heat-trapping carbon dioxide emissions. Bringing it back home, how will you make a green impact today? Let us know on our Twitter page at SABC Newsroom. Interestingly, the Rockefeller family have said that they will disinvest going forward in oil and other fossil fuels, which might be a major breakthrough and the undercurrent that I think everybody would like to hear. You're watching Newsroom. We'll be back after a short break.
SABC News delivers stories that unify the nation
in many ways. Stories that inspire us
to see the world differently, appreciate
and celebrate our diversity.
And mostly,
they make this place a better country to live in despite our color, beliefs or culture.
I
am
Hendra Raghunath,
Eben Jansen,
Tabile Ngwato, Lulu Gabu.
Join us every day
as we provide updates on
local and international news
straight into your home.
We
are
SABC News.
Because of cancer, I realized life is short. I want to live my dream.
They can burn my face, but not my voice.
I'm definitely not a cross-dresser. South Africa, I'm just a gay man.
Join Puleng Molebatsi on Bupilong every Saturday at 17:30 CAT.
Very welcome back to you. This is Newsroom on SABC News. Now, the Tshwane University of Technology, or TUT, management and student leaders held an emergency meeting to resolve the volatile situation at the two campuses in Soshanguve and Garankuwa. The university closed all its campuses on Saturday following a spate of violent protests, during which 18 cars were burnt. The protests have seen the closure of the institution on a number of occasions and the suspension of the Student Representative Council, or SRC. At the heart of the protests is the lack of funds in the National Student Financial Aid Scheme. Now, for the latest, we are joined in our Pretoria studio by the university spokesperson, Villa de Reiter. Very good morning to you. Thank you for joining us.
Good morning. Thank you for the time.
Villa, the two campuses remain closed, I understand. What is the latest then that came out of your meeting yesterday?
In fact, all our campuses are closed. On Saturday morning, in consultation with the chairperson of council, management took the decision to close all campuses for fear of the safety of students. Friday night's sudden violent protest action took us a bit by surprise because the talks on Thursday and Friday went very well and significant progress was made during those talks. What's happening now is that talks resumed again yesterday, and the students and management had a productive meeting, and they decided that the talks will continue today.
Now, at the heart of the protest is the lack of funds from the National Student Aid Scheme. How is this going to be addressed?
TUT has been engaging with the Department of Higher Education and Training through the DG and also with NSFAS through their acting CEO. And the Minister last night also made an announcement about NSFAS funding. We will clarify the matter about the NSFAS with the Minister's office today, and we will issue a statement. For this year, TUT has already received 644 million from NSFAS, and from their indications, there just isn't any more money available. What the university subsequently did last week was to announce that it will make an additional 20 million rand available to assist students to complete their studies. For this year, we have already been able to assist 4,359 first-year students, and then also about 13,500 returning students. If you look at a total enrollment of just over 50,000 students, just over 40% of our students receive funding. But the reality in South Africa is that there just isn't enough funding to assist all students who want to study.
It says, well, the Minister of Higher Education said that some funds available. He mentioned a number of 90 million and said that the university has not claimed that. What's your response to that then?
Like I said, we will clarify the matter with the Minister's office today, and we will issue an official statement later.
And what's your message to the students, those that are not protesting, that find themselves stuck in the middle of this protest and seemingly wasting their money and their time?
Number one, it's a good time to continue with their studies and to prepare for the exams and for the test series that is coming up. It is a crucial time of the year, and management is very concerned about the academic time that is being lost. In view of this, when we decided to close our campuses, we also looked at the academic program and the schedule for the rest of the year. There was a recess coming up in about 10 days, and we decided to move it forward. From yesterday until Friday, all students are on holiday because of the recess now, and we will announce what is going to happen further. The talks with the student leaders will also continue this week with a view to reopening our campuses as soon as possible and to have students return to class as soon as possible.
How would you explain your relationship with the Student Representative Council and student leaders within the university?
Management has always indicated their willingness to talk to students, and there has been ongoing talks throughout the year. That is why we have a student leadership structure. There are structures in place at the institution itself as well to address the issues that the students bring to the table. What is a concern is a protracted strike, because it impacts badly on student progress, and it is also impacting on work that we're doing with professional and accreditation bodies. And in the long run, there is a concern about the reputation of the institution, because it will have an impact on the future employability of students. And therefore, it's very important for the management to continue talks with students, and we are grateful that the talks will continue this week.
Now, to what extent do you expect these disturbances to affect the outcomes of the 2014 academic year?
There is a process in place to deal with the time that has already been lost, and the details about the catch-up will be communicated to the students, and we're going out of our way to minimize any impact on the academic progress of our students.
Now, you say that talks will resume. You've put certain conditions as the institution on these talks. What are those conditions that you've put to the student leaders?
The primary condition would be that there will be no more violent protest action. It is difficult to negotiate in a climate of no trust or where there's still violent protest action. That was one of the preconditions set to the student leaders. And then both parties should be focused on a positive outcome and reaching amicable solutions in the interests of the institution and its students.
Finally, what is the outlook then for today, and when would you like to see classes resume at your institution?
Yesterday's talks went very positively, and the expectation for today is that the talks will be productive and that progress will be made. And like I said, the focus of these talks is to reopen our campus as soon as possible and to get students back into class as soon as possible. And we would be looking towards next week to reopen.
Villa de Reyter, thank you very much for joining us and putting us in the picture as to what must be a very difficult process that your institution is going through. That is the spokesperson of the Tshwane University of Technology, Villa de Reyter. Of course, the campuses in Ga-Rankuwa and Soshanguve have been met with violent protests in the last week or so, and the campuses of all the institutions at that university now remains closed. Talks will continue today. Let's take a look at what you are talking about on social media. What's up at the moment? Kate Ray says, Climate Talk, start today in New York. Add your voice. Yes, climate change is real. Al Gore, Mr. Green himself, we're at the turning point. There's no time to delay. Will you join me in demanding action on climate? That's what it's about. AskWhyNot.org. Sanyoni Aya says, UN Climate Summit in New York today. India, among the world's largest carbon dioxide emitters, with the highest emission growth in 2013. India, that is not good. Incorrigible says, the science is clear and unequivocal. So why is there a climate change debate? Because there's so much money at stake. Now, CNBC, this one from Incorrigible continues. The science is clear and unequivocal. Why is there a debate? It's a fact that 97% of all scientists involved in the study of Earth's climate agree that its climate is changing and that human activity is a cause of this change, given the weight. There is a debate because the 3% that's left, they're the ones in the big positions. Now we move on. Let's take a look at our Newsroom Facebook page. Today we see there that our own president, Jacob Zuma, has urged delegations attending the United Nations Climate Change Summit in New York not to undermine the multilateral process of negotiations, as he warned that climate change threatens development gains. Also, the Canadian drug maker Tecmeris Pharmaceuticals Corp said yesterday that US and Canadian regulators have authorized the use of its Ebola treatment in patients who have confirmed or suspected infections from the deadly virus. That's our Facebook page. Also, on the fun side of things, Valencia continued their solid start to La Liga and climbed to second when recent Spain recruit Paco Alcacer set them on their way to a 3-0 win at Getafe on Monday. More of that and a whole lot of other stories, sport, entertainment, the like on our Facebook page. Now, time for us to take a look back in history. Today, in 1980, reggae icon and future dorm room staple Bob Marley played his last recorded show at Pittsburgh's Stanley Theatre. Cancer killed him less than a year later. Marley is famous for producing hit songs such as No Woman No Cry, Redemption Song, and the ever so popular peace anthem One Love.
Another song of freedom, 'cause all I ever have, redemption songs, redemption songs. Wap to wap, ba 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 say, wama to wap, ba 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 day, wap to wap, ba 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 day, wama to wap, ba ba. Emancipate yourself from mental slavery. None but ourselves can free our minds. Have no fear for atomic energy, 'cause none of them can stop the time. How long shall they kill our prophets while we stand aside and look? Some say it's just a part of it. We've got to fulfill the book.
Well, hello and welcome back to Newsroom. I'm Kathryn Malan, and let's take a look at those top stories this morning. Fingerprints and DNA samples are expected to be sent to Pretoria later this week as the process gets underway to confirm the identity of the South Africans who died in the Nigerian church disaster. A forensic team from South Africa is in Lagos to start collecting the fingerprints and DNA samples today. 84 South Africans died when the guest house at the Synagogue Church of All Nations collapsed more than a week ago. All 25 South African patients who returned from Nigeria yesterday are on a 48-hour lockdown due to the Ebola outbreak in West Africa. On the Ebola topic, new estimates from the World Health Organization warn that the number of Ebola cases could hit 21,000 in 6 weeks unless efforts to curb the outbreak are ramped up. Since the first cases were reported 6 months ago, the tally of cases in West Africa has reached an estimated 5,800 illnesses. WHO officials say cases are continuing to increase and Ebola could sicken people for years to come without better control measures. Then today, climate change takes center stage at the United Nations Summit in New York City. President Jacob Zuma has stressed the importance of today's UN Climate Change Summit in New York, saying climate change threatens development gains. He said intergovernmental talks were the only legitimate vehicle to achieve an agreement by next year's UN Climate Change Conference in Paris, France. Well, now, successful R&B and pop musician Bookie has released his new self-penned single, Closer. Now, some of you might remember Bookie as the fourth runner-up of Idol's 2010, but he has since grown into his own well-recognized brand, taking the media by storm when he released his first album, Bookie Plugged in November 2011, with the single Paradise featuring Proverb. Well, he joins us today in studio to talk about the latest release, Closer. But before we get to him, let's just have a look at Closer.
Baby, you're the first thing that I ever had for real. Went through all the phases, I made all my changes. Made you my princess, forget about my traces. Hearts in different places, can we get a little closer? So baby, tonight I just wanna love you, baby. All you do is drive me crazy. We should be together, lady. Together, baby. A little closer.
Oh yes, Bookie joins us today in studio. Welcome to Newsroom.
Morning, how are you doing?
Bookie, it's been 2010, it's been 4 years. How has your life changed since that stage on Idols?
Well, a lot of change, because 4 years ago I wouldn't have thought that I would be where I am today, because 4 years ago it was only about Idols, you know, and I was a young man not knowing where the future is going to take me. But it's changed drastically to a point that today I'm very proud of where I am, because I worked so hard to get there.
Did you think that young man 4 years ago expected the journey that you've been on?
Not really. You know, to be honest, 4 years ago, like I said, I was this young man on a competition, not thinking about the future. But through hard work and dedication, I've made it through all the trials and tribulations enough.
Tell me, what have been like the greatest challenges over the 4 years? Has it been a challenge shedding that Idol's image and growing into your own?
The challenge was to keep the name or the brand Bookie out there still. And to be honest, I don't want to lose the Idols thing, the Idols background, because people remember me from Idols, and I'm not one to shy away from, because at the end of the day, that brought me to where I am today. And I think the challenge, like I said, was because to get the name out there and keep it sustained throughout the 4 years.
Now, your single Closer is out now.
Yes.
Tell us a bit more about the single, the message, the story behind it.
Well, I'm a soul R&B writer, and I also love pop, rock, and a little bit of dance music. So I wanted to merge the two together. And by doing that, I came up with Closer and put the R&B story into a pop banger club song. And the youth that I am, I love the dancing scene, you know what I'm saying? And you know, the story behind Closer, there's not really much of a story, because I'm a love songwriter in the case. Yeah.
Tell us a bit the production of the music video. Where was this shot? And just tell us a bit more about the director and everything behind it.
This music video was shot in Springs. A friend of mine met Stir and gave me the location. He's a photographer. Gave me the location of an abandoned pool. And the director, Kyle White, which is an amazing guy, directed the whole music video, came up with all these amazing angles. And I've got the two dancers on the music video, the showstoppers, one of the coolest guys I've ever worked with, and I love it.
You've been involved with many projects, productions and charities over the last couple of years. Can you let us in a bit more about the charities and stuff that you're involved with?
I was an ambassador for breast cancer, the Pink Drive, and they would call me in every time they have a charity function, performing-wise and all that. And the productions that I've been through is one of the companies, Frog Productions and Showscan, where I'll be a lead role in a show, in shows like Sun City, the 80s, rock and pop type of shows, yeah.
Now, the single Closer is out. Where can people get hold of it if they want to have a little bit more?
On iTunes. You can get it on iTunes, just Google Boki Closer. You can download it on iTunes. It's also on SoundCloud, Facebook, and all the other medias that you can think of.
Just a local artist such as yourself, it started with Idols. It's been 4 years. Plans of going international, and how do you even start going international?
You know, I think before I think of going international, I do want to go international, but I want to dominate the South African industry first. You know, I don't know if domination is the right word to use, but be successful in my own country before I can try and go to other countries or being international.
Well, then just lastly, people, how can they get hold of you personally? Facebook, Twitter, all of those details.
You can catch me on Facebook, Boki Ntsime, Ntsime, and Twitter, Boknizzle. And on Instagram is also Boknizzle or Boki Ntsime.
Well, Boki, thank you so much for joining us this morning. We'll be sure to upload all of your information and stuff to our own Newsroom Facebook page. We'll also be tweeting that link to Closer, and it's also uploaded to the page already. Eben, do you have anything more to add for us?
Well, I think that's a fantastic music video and a killer track. Boki, well done, mate. Really, really good stuff. It's nice to see that our local artists are really producing work of an international standard, top quality. I really liked it. Bang club track, that is. Let's have a look at final look at what's on our Facebook, no, on our Twitter page. Oh, I'm getting confused. Mandla says, now that the MTN 80 is over, the official PSL teams are afraid of being drawn against Kaizer Chiefs. Come on, man. Can we get a different comment here? Yes, you won. It's now Tuesday already. Kaizer Chiefs, I wish we can play against Orlando Pirates all the time. Who's putting these tweets up? This is not right. You guys beat us. We are happy. We are the happy people. You beat us. Thank you. Telkom Cup, Orlando Pirates versus Polokwane City. Yes, there we have something for the nation to look forward to. Prince Sean says, now to win the Nedbank Cup, Telkom Cup and the PSL finally, Amakosi for Leif. Anyhow, can we wrap the show now? Enough already. All these Chief supporters are driving me around the bend, you know. They only won a small little trophy this weekend, and now it's like it's the end of the world. We're going to play out with Boki because that's a killer track. Some of the very best of our very own. Local is lekker. Support his music. It's on iTunes, SoundCloud, all the like. It's called Closer. It's a killer track, and it's going to be one of the sounds of summer, I can tell you that. Newsroom's broadcast live from our studios here in Auckland Park in Johannesburg. We're also streaming live on YouTube right now. This is SABC News. You've been watching Newsroom. We love it in the morning.
Should be together, lady, together, baby, a little closer. A little closer, 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 closer. Tonight, I'll give you my attention. Forget about the world and promise me that we'll be together as we get a little closer. Come and be my happy ending. Let's enjoy the age of life. Feel the space between us, 'cause I'm slowly dying, baby. Let's get closer. should be together, lady. Together, baby. A little closer.